Sarajevo's citizens were overjoyed when the siege they'd endured for nearly 4 years finally ended.
In a way, of course, I was ecstatic. I was happy. I couldn't describe that. You know, like you have the mountain of your chest.
But after the initial feelings of joy and relief, many veterans encountered difficulty in adjusting to everyday life.
It was not very nice period of time, you know, for many of the people, for a lot of the soldiers. It's very hard for them to integrate. And some people dealt with it with drinking, with some people, you know, turn to religion, some people, you know, start using drugs, some people just flipped.
Past traumas are still painful to recall.
This damned question that I've heard so many times. Did you kill somebody? The question must not be asked. You can't answer that question. Because it's like putting your finger through your wounded soul where it hurts the most.
Despite being at the center of Europe's bloodiest conflict since World War II, many Bosnian veterans have been able to adapt successfully to civilian life. Ognjen manages a high-profile film distribution company. JOSIP worked in a bank. And EMIR, somewhat ironically, now works for NATO.
I realized at a certain point that it's really important just to work it out for yourself, in order that you can realize what actually happened and that you can find some peace with it so that you can continue with your life.
During the war, Bosnia became one of the most mined nations on earth, with chilling consequences. But even some of those physically wounded in the conflict have managed to transform their misfortune into triumph. All of these men lost limbs as a result of landmine injuries. But displaying the fighting spirit which allowed them to withstand 4 years of attack, they've become winners in sitting volleyball, playing for the national team which, extraordinarily for a nation of its size, is European, world and Olympic champion. This team is named the Phantoms, after the pain felt in an area where a limb has been amputated. Team captain ISMET GODINJAK feels that his players' experiences of war and disability have strengthened them.
I am convinced that people in this team are healthier and saner than half of the so-called normal population, because we have tasted the bitter side of life and successfully overcome it. We don't bother with trivial things like others. We know that the situation can be worse, and we can fight it and win over it, becoming stronger out of it.
In spite of the continued division of the country, the team refuses to allow political feelings to compromise their sporting professionalism.
3 or 4 years ago, we played against a couple of teams from the Serb Republic in the EuroLeague. Frankly speaking, these are the people that we fought against. And they were still under the influence of ideology, waving war symbols years after the end of the war. Still, they had that mindset. We agreed that we would not let them provoke any negative reaction. We had a name and reputation at that time and didn't want to spoil that. In the end, that was one of our best games.
Through the realm of sport, these veterans have been able to put aside ethnic differences and past enmities. Yet many feel betrayed by the division of the country along ethnic lines which the Dayton Accords established, and which persist to this day. For some, this is the very thing they fought to prevent.
I believe that was the reason why some other people, Serbia or Croatia, why they actually started the war altogether. This was the aim that they wanted to reach, that they disregarding what just divide this society along these ethnical lines, and I didn't want to be a part of that game. Unfortunately, to some extent, they succeeded.
MIRSAD TOKACA has spent the years since the war attempting to document the exact number and identities of those who lost their lives. For him, this is the only way of re-establishing the multi-ethnic society that existed in Bosnia before the war.
If we want to do that, then we need the full truth about events, no matter who, when, and how was killed. There is no discrimination of victims. There is no peace without justice. We don't believe in peaceful future of Bosnia without justice for victims.
But there has been scant justice for those who fill the many graveyards that dot Sarajevo, and for those who survive with painful memories of the suffering they endured. The Bosnian Serb ringleaders, Karadzic and Mladic, remain at large. Many here suspect they're sheltered by the authorities in Belgrade. Former Serbian President Slobodan Milosevic was indicted and brought to the International Criminal Court at The Hague, accused of crimes against humanity. But he died before a verdict was reached. Another blow to his victims' hopes for justice. The veterans of Sarajevo still struggle to understand why their former neighbors turned against them and what to feel about them now.
Maybe it's just a wave, a bad wave who is carrying them, and they feel that the killing is good, that they are cool if they kill more of the people, innocent people. Probably they don't sleep good, probably.
You know, how can you respect somebody who threw the mortar grenade and killed 50 people? You know, is he brave? Is he doing something good? So the war is finished, so what, let's kiss? I can't. We can live by each other, but I don't feel nothing toward them, at least nothing nice. They can continue with their own lives. The God will punish them for what they did.
Faith became an increasingly contentious topic during the Bosnian War. It came to be seen by many as a religious and not a purely territorial conflict. And so, even as the wider international community turned its back on the region, thousands of Muslim sympathizers were drawn there to fight. Abu Hamza had come to Yugoslavia in the 1980s to study medicine, but the war's outbreak soon put him on a different course. One incident persuaded him it was his religious duty to fight alongside Bosnia's Muslims.
Once we received a family, a father and 3 daughters. The daughter was around 13 years old. She didn't speak at all. We found out that her mother had been killed in front of her and was raped, and the girl herself was also raped. So from that day onward, she lost her. Let's say she had a psychological problem where she lost the ability to speak. It was this girl that made me decide. The people who raped her in front of her mother could not be human. They must be taught a lesson.
Abu Hamza, together with other Arab veterans who fought against the Serbs, was awarded Bosnian citizenship after the war, recognition of his efforts. He married a Bosnian widow, adding 3 children of his own to the 3 she had with her former husband, who'd been killed by Serb forces. But the life Abu Hamza has made for himself and his family here in Sarajevo is now under threat.
After September 11th, everything completely changed. We became the terrorists.
The Bosnian government has retracted Abu Hamza's citizenship, a result, it's claimed, of pressure from the United States. He now faces deportation. As a Muslim, he remains proud of what he did, despite its personal toll.
Abu Hamza is a human being, and Abu Hamza is a Muslim. And as a human being, I'm completely regretful. But as a fighter, and as a Muslim, I consider my blessings to be from God, and I don't regret anything.
More than a decade after the war ended, Sarajevo seems to be newly confident, reveling in the peace it was denied for so long. A new generation is growing up with no memory of the horrors that befell their elders.
Today, when I look I see kids going to kindergartens, schools, university. I see beautiful girls walking around. I see that the city is alive again, is going forward, is expanding. And that is the greatest reward. At that moment, everything makes sense. All the sufferings and victims. No matter that life is difficult now, that will pass. Our generation may not be around to see, but we did a good job, and this city lives.
But the reminders of what was sacrificed are everywhere. These streets on which Sarajevo's people walk today hold clues to its bloody past. Blotches of red paint, known as red roses, mark the spots where mortar victims met their death. Everyone here knows that the peace that exists is artificial and deeply fragile. There are mounting fears that now Kosovo has declared independence, the cycle of destruction will be repeated across the region. Nejad has a young daughter, one of the new generation that has known only peace. He's hoping that war will not rob her of her youth, as it did him and his contemporaries. But the tragic history of this war-scarred and divided region gives him little cause for optimism.
Somehow in this region is full of the fools, and somehow we never learn. It's like a repetition. I will not use the mathematics to tell how many years it's between the conflicts, but it will, for sure, someday we will have the conflict.